bookaholics, and welcome back to another reading vlog. If you can hear my kettle, I am sorry. It's old and it's trying, okay? I'm here to start another weekly, well, it's going to be actually slightly more than a week reading vlog because this is just the final stretch into September until the end of the month. So I have 3 books provisionally lined up, which you'd think, but Faye, you recently read 5 books in 24 hours. How is 3 books going to be over a week? Well, I do have an ebook should I need reinforcements, and also just in case I need an ebook, because sometimes I do use ebooks as a way of circumventing doom scrolling. I'll do a video on that at some point if anyone's interested, how I manage to read so much and not get sucked into 1, doom scrolling, 2, staring at walls, and 3, time management. I'm happy to do one. I've been asked before what my secrets are. I don't really have any secrets, but one of my tips is always, if you have any kind of ebook service on your phone, to make sure you have an ebook on the go in the background, so that if you feel like you've doom scrolled for too long but you can't be bothered to get up, or you aren't really sure what else you want to do, switch to the ebook on your phone. It's one of the ways that I do it. Anyway, I have an ebook lined up just in case. The one I'm most inclined to at the moment, just because of the type of TBR that I have, I'm going to need something light, but something that isn't especially short. So I've gone with the Duchess deal by Tessa Dare. At the moment, that's my provisional plan here because it's a Regency romance. So I thought, well, why not? But now actually getting into the TBR itself, I have, as I said, 3 books. These are quite dense reads, I think they're going to be quite dense reads, hence why only 3 at the moment, and I can just take my time with them. I think also I don't really want to burn myself out, because obviously I have been reading substantially more intensively because of Magical Readathon, and I really don't want to burn myself out and then not enjoy reading in October because it's been just too many books. So this last week, 3 books and slowing down a little bit sounds like a good idea, so that I can come back in fighting spirit in October, because September and October are always my favorite reading months. So the first book that I have on this TBR is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. This is a retelling of the life of Shakespeare's family, I believe. I'm not 100% sure whose perspective we're following, but I'm fairly certain, since this is about Hamnet, this is going to be while Shakespeare is in London and the rest of his family is in Stratford-upon-Avon, I think. I don't even know how historical this is versus anything else. It might be a little bit magical realism, I don't know. The back says, a young woman in Stratford-upon-Avon takes to her bed with a sudden fever. Her twin brother Hamnet searches everywhere for help. Why is nobody at home? Their mother Agnes is over a mile away in the garden where she grows medicinal herbs. Their father is working in London. Neither parent knows that Hamnet will not survive the week. Hamnet is a novel inspired by the son of a famous playwright, a boy whose life has been all but forgotten, but whose name was given to one of the most celebrated plays ever written. I'm going to go in with just this theatre vibe, and I'm here for it, and I'm excited nonetheless. The next one that I have is one that is my greatest fear of a book. It is the one that I always put off. I have put this on 3 TBRs, and I'm always intimidated by reading it, and that is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Now, I'm not intimidated by it because of its size, or because of its subject matter, or because of its density. One of my all-time favorite books, one that actually got me introduced to one of my favorite subgenres, which is very specifically the niche of mythology retellings told from the perspective of vilified women, is Circe by this author. So that puts so much pressure on this book that I am concerned. Now, there are things about this book that sound amazing to me. One, that we have Achilles being a bit of an ass. And I'm here for that. Achilles is always kind of now shown as this great hero, even when he is a bit of an ass. You know, like in Troy, the movie, he's a bit of an ass in that, but like still in like this swoon-worthy way. I'm kind of hoping that because we're getting it from Patroclus's perspective, it's going to be a little bit more nuanced, I suppose. When we're seeing it from the perspective of someone who Achilles is known to have been vulnerable with, we will see a different side to Achilles than the side that we normally see. And in men of this time, it's entirely possible possible that vulnerability will come out in fear, and therefore that will turn to anger, to pushing someone away, to resentment, to any of those kinds of things. So I'm very interested to see how Madeline Miller decides to explore this, but I'm terrified of this book and I keep not reading it. So hopefully this is the time. Now is my time to read this book. And the last one that I have on the TBR for definite, as I said, aside from the Tessa Dare one, I have Lessons in Magic and Disaster by Charlie Jane Anders. Charlie Jane Anders has been the author of the year for me. I have read 2 of their books. I've loved everything that I have read by her so far. So this is no exception for me. I am very excited to get to this one. This one is following a young woman whose mother has hit rock bottom. So our protagonist decides to teach her mother magic to be able to help her get by. However, her mum starts to use it in all of the worst ways, and it becomes both of their problem to fix, I believe. There's going to be a story about a relationship between a mother and a daughter, about fixing your life, but through the veneer of magic. Very excited for this one. This is also the first one of Charlie Jane Anders that I think is solidly fantasy. Well, obviously like in the magical realism, but like on the fantasy end of things, because the other 2 that I have read, which are The City in the Middle of the Night, is a sci-fi dystopian, and then All the Birds in the Sky is half and half. You have one perspective that's a witch and one perspective that is a scientist that's creating time travel. So getting one that is like solidly fantasy is going to be very interesting indeed. So yeah, I'm excited to get to this. It's absolutely stunning. I am very sorry to everyone in the US and the cover that you have been landed with, but I got the beautiful cover. These are all of course going to be for the Magical Readathon. I will leave all of the information about the Magical Readathon linked down below, and have already done 4 vlogs for the Magical Readathon anyway, so you know the spiel by now. I'll let you know what subjects I use them for when I have my notebook on me, because I don't at the moment, and I will leave you now until I have read something. Hey vlog, it is Wednesday. I did update you yesterday, but the footage went funky. You got me today. And I have actually read an entire book. I read an entire book yesterday. So what were my updates? Yesterday's updates were that I had started Hamnet. I had only read 1 chapter, which remains the same. I'm 28 pages in because the chapters are kind of long in this one. This one is beautiful. I'm really loving the writing style in this one. It's very stream of consciousness. It's written in present tense instead of in past tense. So for anyone who cares about their verb structures and they're not a fan of present tense, which I can completely understand, this one is that. But it is very stream of consciousness. It is very ethereal in vibes. So I am really liking that. However, I literally read that part Monday, and then since then spent all of yesterday reading The Duchess Deal by Tessa Dare. My brain just really craved something easy so that I could be goo, and that's what I leaned into. I was kind of saying how I did want to take this week slowly and take it a bit more chill because of having done the all-nighter. And then I proceeded to read a whole book. The thing is that one, it was just so compulsively readable, so easy to read, that it didn't feel like effort. Not that books ever really feel like effort, but there are ones where, you know, they require a bit more brain power. So I feel like my brain just had a little holiday while reading The Duchess Deal. So that's what I did. And that's fine. I really liked that. I've ended up giving it 4 stars. Wildly historically inaccurate. Absolutely mental, like how inaccurate that is. And yeah, I loved it anyway. I had just so much fun. That's the joy of it, right? It's just sometimes you need to switch your brain off. And I am quite critical when I'm reading historical fiction, because historical fiction is actually a huge source of misinformation a lot of the time when it comes to the past. It is obviously deeply rooted in the biases of the author, but then also sometimes can lead to misrepresentation of historical figures. I've seen this many times. Philippa Gregory is literally notorious for having created lots of notions that previously had never been discussed by historians because there's no foundation for them, that now are taken as absolute truths. Look at her depictions of Margaret Beaufort, her vilification of Henry VII. Like, there are so many times where, because her works are so popular, she is now treated as kind of like a historian instead of someone writing historical fiction. So I'm very critical of historical fiction. That being said, historical romance not critical at all. I think to me it's the difference between depicting like the Tudors, the TV show, which is trying to present actual history and historical figures like Henry VIII, and is doing it in a form that is actually misrepresenting them, be it from their depictions, their physical attributes. For example, you have it where Jonathan Rhys Meyers, who is a relatively short man, having him feeling self-conscious about his height, while Henry was 6 foot at the very, very least. He was 6 foot tall, which at the time would have put him well above average in height. Maybe not within his own family, because his maternal grandfather was the tallest king England's ever had at 6'3". You know, he was not considered a small man. He was a very tall man for his time period. Then people kind of get this idea of, oh, was he a psychopath because he had a bit of a Napoleon complex, which no, he did not. So there are just things like that. While if you watch Bridgerton and you're thinking that's how history really was, then boy, have I got news for you, you know? So when reading this Tessa Dare book, I don't look for historical accuracy, I look for fun. And I think that's the difference. As soon as you start bringing in elements that just make it so unrealistic, it doesn't matter anyway. We have a dude who is a duke, and he was at the Battle of Waterloo, and for some reason he was injured and he got burnt from exploding powder keg, I believe. Interesting to me because just that alone, just that notion, which is literally in the synopsis, where you have someone surviving the severity of burns that he has, was interesting, because the likelihood of survival, I imagine, would have been slim when you're in a war zone and you're having 3rd-degree burns, because infections. There is already that kind of touch and go. But okay, let's say he, miraculously survives. The story is that he then goes and marries a seamstress. So basically, he needs an heir because he doesn't want his estate to fall into his cousin's hands because he hates his cousin. So he needs an heir, and his betrothed has broken off the engagement, or at least that's what you kind of alluded to, that she's broken off the engagement due to his deformity. And then you have the seamstress who had made his wife's wedding dress appear at his house because they are refusing to pay for her labor because the wedding is no longer on, even though she'd already made the dress and still deserves to be compensated. So he says, that's fine, I'll marry you because he really wants an heir, and he's aware that a lot of the women in high society are not going to want to marry him. It does do a better job than a lot of them because she's a seamstress, but she is actually gentry. Her father is a vicar. She just kind of ran away and became a seamstress. So at least he does take into consideration her breeding, which is kind of gross, but apt to the time period, which I think is pretty cool. The problem being though is that that's not really what would have mattered, because as soon as she left her father's home and became a seamstress, she would then be deemed a seamstress, not gentry, which again, yes, he doesn't give a shit. He just kind of is like, oh, well, opportunity knocks, and hey, at least she's kind of gentry, so it makes it a bit less awful, I suppose. Elevating a seamstress to a duchess back then would not have been a done thing. Bear in mind, if you going back to when we were talking about Plantagenets a second ago, Edward the Fourth slightly tore England apart for a hot minute there because he married Elizabeth Woodville, and Elizabeth Woodville was deemed a peasant, bearing in mind that her mother, Jacquetta of Luxembourg, was related to the previous king by marriage, but she had been a duchess. It's just that then she ran off with a squire, and the father's parentage mattered more. That's literally where the kind of you are a peasant line is drawn when you're talking about the highest echelons of society, which is exactly what a duke would be. So, it was absolutely scandalous that Jacquetta ran off with a squire. The idea that a professional woman like a seamstress would get a look in with a duke is obviously something that would basically only really get fabricated in fiction. So as soon as you cross that threshold, it's like, I'm game, we know this is full-on fiction, no one's believing this is real. So that's when it becomes fun. Instead, it's nice little brain candy instead of, oh, we're trying to present this as those historical facts, like happens when you are depicting real life historical figures. Random ramble aside, I really enjoyed this. I'm giving it 4 stars. I really liked the depictions of him overcoming his trauma, of her overcoming her trauma, them coming together. It's a rivals to lovers, marriage of convenience, grumpy sunshine, who hurt you, the whole shebang, just all the things that you want in a really cheesy romance, and I had a great time with it. So today's plan, as I said, today's Wednesday. My plan is I'm going to hopefully read a absolute ton of Hamlet. That's my hopes and plans. I'm basically just going to sit down and read this for a while, especially during the day when my brain is more capable of braining. Once I've read more of this, I'll let you know my thoughts on it. I don't know when I will check in, maybe at the halfway point. I don't know how much. I feel like this book is going to be quite slow, so I don't know how much I'm going to actually be able to say on it. So we shall see. I like the writing style, so it shouldn't be difficult to get through. Hey vlog, I'm checking in again because I have actually gotten halfway through Hamlet and it's not even like I'm gonna go have dinner in a minute. So the chances are once the kids are in bed, I'll continue reading. I thought it would be sensible to check in before I finish the whole thing, and then this whole vlog is just gonna be me updating you when I finish a book. So we are halfway through this now. This is actually told in two timelines, which I wasn't expecting. We have one timeline that is set in 1596, in which we are following the last week of Hamlet Shakespeare's life. And throughout this part so far, we have it where Hamlet's sister, Judith, his twin sister, is actually the one who is unwell. And at the start, we have it where he is searching for his family members because he is the only one in the house and he can't find anyone to help out with his sister. And then once everyone comes home, everyone sees that she is sick and everyone's trying to do what they can to take care of her. The other timeline is in what I am presuming is the early 1580s when Shakespeare is first courting Anne/Agnes Hathaway, and we're following it from the perspective of them getting together and from her having their first child. We have it where she is kind of deemed potentially a witch. Obviously there's no actual credence to any of this. This is where the fiction part comes in, but she is someone who is a bit of a medicine woman and all these things. Again, no actual credence could be lent to those suppositions, but we know so little about Anne/Agnes Hathaway that it's not beyond reason that she might have been interested in just your typical herbal remedies that would be expected of a wife and mother to possibly know how to take care of her family. He got her pregnant and they had a bit of a shotgun wedding. She's older than him as well, which isn't really depicted in here. He's 18, she's 26 when they get together. That's not really shown here. They kind of seem to be quite similar in age. They do keep pointing out how young he is to be getting married, which 18 would have been considered very young for a man, not necessarily young for a woman to be getting married. But 20s was more the average age for most people to be getting married during the Elizabethan period. So he was deemed young, she was not. But that's not really mentioned in a way that it's like, oh, because she's older. It's just his mother being appalled that he's getting married as young as 18, which I thought was, interesting. We also have depictions of some of her relatives, which again, I am not sure if it's a very faithful representation. We have it where Joan Hathaway is depicted as her stepmother instead of her mother. There is no real reason to believe this. It is possible that she was a stepmother because so little is known about her. It's possible that it was a stepmother, but we cannot, again, say that with certainty. But it is very interesting, to see, this fictionalized account. And I think because we are within the realm of possibility, aside from the witchiness, which is a whole other thing, we have it as something that technically could fall within the realm of possibility when it comes to some of these interpersonal relationships, etc. So it's not something that you can give credence to. It's not something that you can take away and be like, oh, this is exactly as it happened. Likewise, it isn't something that could be completely dismissed because we don't know. So, it's just a bit of fun there. I am enjoying reading it. I'm enjoying seeing the interpersonal relationships. I do love when we see the way that multiple generations live within a household and the interpersonal relationships. I am liking that, at least as of yet, we're not seeing much animosity between the likes of Mary Arden, Shakespeare's mother, and Anne Hathaway/Agnes Hathaway. In this story, we're not seeing any kind of rivalry or any animosity because it was commonplace. You would live with your mother-in-law. Kind of resent the idea that it's always depicted where mother-in-laws are super overbearing. That's not the case here. It's actually kind of nice for her to have the help. At the end of the day, Mary Arden had 8 children, some of whom were still children at the time of Agnes moving in/Anne moving in. I think that it's depicted in a way that I do really appreciate because it's a lot more genuine. I'm not sure about the depictions of John Shakespeare, so this is William Shakespeare's father. He is depicted as someone who is very abusive. Now, there are things in here that are accurate. We have it where we see John's criminal activities. He was caught on multiple occasions for smuggling wool. Yes, that is a thing. It's interesting that that's depicted in here. Also, his potential dealings with multiple farmers where things weren't paid as well as they were supposed to, and he really did lose his reputation for a hot minute there. So that's depicted in here, which is fair because that is accurate. Depicting someone who is a real person in history that we have never met, that we do not know what his personal life was like, seeing him as someone who is incredibly abusive and rather a drunk, maybe not ideal. It's fiction. I understand you need the characters to kind of exist past the unknown that we have of them. It borders on slander, so I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I might be missing some primary sources that state that John was abusive. I mean, bear in mind that corporal discipline, so like physical punishment, i.e. physical abuse, was actually a commonplace thing back in this time. Obviously, I staunchly disagree with any kind of physical violence, but depicting that as though he is outright abusive instead of it just being a form of discipline that used to be used kind of blurs the line, because then you're inserting modern values. It becomes a bit anachronistic. So I don't know how I feel about that. I have mixed feelings on that. Agnes/Anne is someone who is normally depicted as like a terrible burden for Shakespeare. Shotgun wedding, is forced to marry her. He didn't love her, trapped in this loveless marriage thing, which to me is ridiculous because there are no reported cases of Shakespeare having a mistress. Now, obviously, so much gets lost to time. There are no reported cases of him taking a mistress, and he returned home yearly, apparently. Again, I don't know the veracity of this, but from what I have read, it seems like he did return frequently to see his wife and children. He moved to London because he had no opportunity in Warwickshire to be a playwright. So he needed to make his name in London. And as soon as he was able to retire, he retired back to Stratford with his wife. So it's an odd one, I think, in a way, to depict it as though it was a loveless marriage, because why would he keep commuting home even once his daughters were adults and married? Why would he keep commuting home to his wife? Why would he retire home to his wife if he was in a loveless marriage? That's my personal opinion. There are many arguments to and for it anyway, but to me, it's always when we're deciding that we need to depict a relationship or an interpersonal relationship with people and we need to do it in a negative light, I think it needs to be handled with some sensitivity when we are talking about real life people that existed as opposed to fictional characters. Hence why I have my issues with the depictions of John Shakespeare in this. We'll see how I fare with that, but the rest of it I'm really enjoying. The writing style is gorgeous. I'm really liking this stream of consciousness vibe that we've got going. So far I'm having a great time with the book. I do really like the way the story is being told, these two timelines, and really getting that immersion, especially again having been there recently as well. It's really brought it to life. So I'm really liking all of that. I just wish that we weren't a little bit anachronistic sometimes. I will hopefully finish this either today or tomorrow, and then I will be able to check back in and let you know my final thoughts on it and what I'm going to read. Good morning vlog, it's now Thursday morning. Yes, I am still in the same pajamas. Sue me, I haven't gotten changed yet. I'm going to go film today, so I need to kind of get like all dolled up and stuff, and I thought that you guys just didn't deserve seeing me dolled up. Fucking hell. I'm here to check in. I have finished Hamnet. I cried. Of course I cried. The subject matter is one that is always going to make me cry. Also, I guess just knowing that the real life Hamnet was the same age as my eldest child is now makes me really sad, because obviously there's that psychological link. It's a very emotional ride, a very emotional experience. I sobbed at the end. It kind of left me hollow and dead inside for a bit. Thankfully, I did watch G's announcement last night, which was like silly and goofy, which was exactly what I needed to kind of not let this completely derail me. And then I also watched her vlog. So yeah, G literally pulling me out of the doom and gloom of this book. But it was a fantastic book. I've given it 5 stars. It's really interesting because it has this kind of prose. For example, Shakespeare is never actually named. Like, we never actually hear Will's name, which is interesting because everyone else, it's by name. So all she would have needed to do is to call him like Will or Bill instead, because we never call him by his first name. No one ever is just like William and we know exactly who they're talking about. We know him by his surname, right? So all you would have needed to do is just not mention anyone's surnames, and it would have had actually a very similar effect. It felt a little bit convoluted that the author kept kind of going about her way, deliberately trying to make sure that she is not referring to him by name. It's always her children's father, her husband. When she first meets him, he's a Latin tutor. All those kinds of things, that just anything to not call him by name, which again, if she'd have just called him William, which is a very generic name, it would have actually had the same effect. It would have also been quite demystifying, because it's like, oh yeah, he has just a really regular name. That's why we remember his surname. Thank goodness he has a very distinctive surname, you know? Really liked this. I think that the choices that were made, especially when it comes to the latter half, build up to that moment, and then you get an aftermath. I thought it would end with that. It doesn't. You get an aftermath. So it's really good that you're seeing the way that everyone deals with it and the way that everyone processes it. It was interesting, actually, because I think in the last update I said to you that I really liked that there isn't a huge amount of animosity between Mary and Agnes, Mary Arden being Shakespeare's mother, who they are somewhat living with. It's like a house that's on the same property. They're like, I think, interlinked, but it is like its own house. The way that that comes about actually is interesting, because in not long after I'd said that, we do actually see that they did initially have a little bit of animosity, and then I guess just having children is what bonded them. I really liked the way that it was handled. I really liked the way that we see these characters. Obviously, there is stuff in here that is very much speculation. There are also things that it cannot be proven or disproven either way, like we've said before. So it's not necessarily that it's a hugely historically accurate, you should take this as gospel, and more just this is historical fiction that does a really good job of presenting some of the facts that we know and filling in those gaps with the author's own surmising, own ideas. And I think that's fine. I think it was handled well. I kind of question a little bit about the attitude towards John Shakespeare. I don't know about that bit. Everything else I really liked, but obviously that's not a central part of the story. I've still given it 5 stars, which, you know, it sounds like I've got criticisms. I have. I like pointing out criticisms of books that I've really loved, because some people, it might bother them. And I don't think that pretending that there is a perfect, infallible book is helpful to potential readers. So I am pointing these things out because there are things that I think are noteworthy, but it is not something that has actually in any way interfered with my enjoyment of the book. And I really liked this book. It was very emotional. It was interestingly written with this, like I said, stream of consciousness vibe, this present tense to kind of keep you ebbing along, keep you flowing this entire time. I think was really well handled, and I would highly recommend you check it out if you are interested in historical fiction, if you're interested in Shakespeare's life, anything like that. I will say it was really cool because I've recently been to Stratford and I have actually seen the buildings in question in person recently. The only one that isn't there is New Place. New Place got knocked down. So New Place is where Shakespeare moves his family to once he has money. So once he can move them out of his parents' home where he puts his wife and children, which is still in town. That one's not there anymore. It got knocked down in the 1700s and now it's a garden. The house next door to it is there. So that is held by the Shakespeare Trust, but the actual New Place isn't there. Everywhere else is there. But the thing is that the frustration of, like, I have been to Anne Hathaway's cottage when they first meet. It's like, oh, that's there. And when we're talking about him living at his father's house, it's like, oh, I've been there as well. I can picture that house. And the New Place, which happens in this book, it's like, oh, well, I can't picture that because that's not there. I've not been there, which was very weirdly frustrating because, like, well, I've seen all the others. I want to see this one in person. But yeah, it was good. Great time to read this. Well, again, being in Stratford is so fresh in my mind. Great time with it. I'm rambling again. I keep doing this to you. I am now going to pick up Lessons in Magic and Disaster, which I am very, very excited for. And hopefully I will love this just as much as I have loved her 2 previous books of hers that I've read. And I think this is going to be really good for the season as well. It's giving me autumn vibes. So let's go dig in and I will come back to you once I have something to say. Hey vlog, I'm here with an update to let you know that I have completely derailed my own plans because that's just who I am as a person, you know? I've just finished reading But Not Too Bold by Hashe Pueyo. Basically, I want to read The Governor's Game. I want to read the next Tessa Dare book. Yes, I know. Don't even. So I needed to fit it into Magical Readathon, but I couldn't fit it into any of the O prompts for Magical Readathon, and I still care about my Magical Readathon. I want to save some pets, okay? So for animal studies, right, the options are, the first one is a debut book, the second one is a sequel, and the third one is the last in a series or like most recent available. So my logic is The Governor's Game is a sequel, so all I needed to do was read a debut book. So I literally went tutor.com, found a novella that I was interested in. I did actually buy one I was interested in. That was like a short book that was a debut, so that I could read a debut book, so that I could then read a sequel. I need help. Someone send help. Oh my god. But I did it. I read all like 90 pages of Not Too Bold, and fuck me, this was a weird fucking book. Oh my god. This is a like gothic mystery monster romance. We have spider smut in here. Trigger warnings out the wazoo for all of the insectophobes and arachnophobes. Stay so far away from this book. You have this humanoid spider person thing that this woman is working for. She's like the housekeeper, but with keys and like locks and things. Anyway, we have this woman. She works for this Spider Woman. Spider Woman. Can you tell this book has broken me? The fuck did I read? I had a great time. I really enjoyed this book. But what the fuck did I just read? I finished it like 3 minutes ago. I just needed to like laugh and like compress myself and like think of things like, can I actually? And then come on camera. I enjoyed it. Gothic vibes, fabulous. Absolutely amazing. The writing style was lovely. I really enjoyed that. The author is Brazilian Argentinian, and I'm fairly certain that they write in all 3 languages. So they do their own translations, which means that you know that you've got the most like authentic version possible of this book in any of those 3 languages, which is always very cool. Oh my god. What did I read? Fuck. What did I read? Oh my god. But yeah, no, I had a great time with it. I did have a really good time with the book. It was just a very strange book. But it does mean that now I get to read The Governor's Game. So you guys are going to lose me for a day. I'm not going to lie. I am planning on going downstairs now with my lunch, parking my booty on my sofa, and I ain't moving unless I absolutely have to till I finish this damn book. Because I have been desperate to read it ever since I read book 1. I bought book 2 as soon as I finished book 1. And now I'm just sitting here and I'm like, I'm so desperate to read it that I've also bought book 3. And if I just keep rolling with it, I keep rolling with it. Which is ridiculous because I am fairly certain that this is going to be a 5-star read. But right now my brain needs smut. It needs historically inaccurate smut. So let's go. Hey, people of the internet. I did exactly what I said I was going to do the second time. I did not start lesson in magic and disaster. I did, however, read the entirety of The Governor's Game. I'm not even sorry. I should be, but I'm not even sorry. I still have 2 things that are actually obligation reads for the Magical Readathon. And instead I'm out here like, I've got plenty of time. You know, I've got 5 days. It's fine. I'm starting it today. Anyway, hopefully I can read it in like 2 days. That's the hope. Then I have Song of Achilles, which I can't switch out. I don't know why I do this to myself. I really don't. But I had a great time. Like, I don't even have regrets because I had a great time with my book. So it's just one of those things. I've given it 4 stars. I potentially like this one a tiny bit less than the first one, just because having sex before falling in love thing, when you're talking about historical books, it's very particular, I suppose, for me. So in the case of the first book, they're having sex before they're in love because the whole idea of them getting married was so that she could sire an heir and then they could live their separate lives, right? That was like the precedent for their marriage. Now, the fact that they're constantly thinking about each other in a sexual manner because sex needed to come first makes sense, if that makes sense, because it was literally the purpose of the marriage was to procreate. So them constantly thinking about sex is one thing. In this one, these 2 people have conflated lust and love a little bit. Like, there's a little bit too much, just as we are professing our love for each other, we must bang kind of thing. It's a little bit too on the smutty side, I suppose. Just a lot of just like, I'm so in love with you that I have an erection now. I just don't vibe with that quite as much. However, I did really like the characters, and one of the things that I did really like about this one is that we also have like a found family dynamic. We have these two girls that are in the care of our male love interest. I don't know. I think it was well handled. I think that the story was well done. Again, just a little bit too smutty for me. I'm still giving it 4 stars because flipping addictive. Again, I read it in a day. Not even a whole day, because I read Not Too Bold, which again, granted, 90 pages. Took me like an hour and a half, if that. I read that with my morning break, so it would have been what, like 10 a.m. After that, I then immediately went into the Governor's Game. So not even a whole day. Super addictive. Didn't want to put it down. That being said, I am genuinely going to start lessons in magic and disaster. I might need to keep alternating for a little bit while my brain is goo. I might need, like, the book after this might be the next Tessa Dare one, and then go into Song of Achilles and just kind of play with fire, I guess. I mean, again, worst case scenario, I can buy a scroll to kind of prolong this and lean into mood reading a little bit. It's not something I'm very good at. That being said, I'm going to go start lessons in magic and disaster now, and then I will come back when I have something to say on it. Hey vlog, it's Saturday. I am a bit migrainey again today. It seems to be a bit of a recurring thing recently, but oh well. But I did get some decent reading done, so I thought I'd check in because I am now halfway through Lessons in Magic and Disaster. Yeah, I'm on page 220 out of 430 something, and I am really liking this. I can't say that this is my favorite Charlie Jane Anders, which is odd because this one should be my favorite. This should be everything to me. So I don't know if it's a mood thing. I'm still really loving it. Do not let me and my funky mood convince you otherwise. I'm having a fantastic time with this book. It's just that of the 3, I think this is the one I'm least obsessed with. We've got a couple of POVs and then a story within a story within a story going on as well. So there's a lot going on in here, especially given that I have only read 200 pages. We have 2 perspectives. The first one is Jamie, who is a young woman who is doing her PhD. She is married and she has quite a fraught relationship with her mother, made worse when her other mother passed away. Her surviving mother, Serena, is not doing too good. So Jamie then decides to teach Serena about her magic that Jamie happens to possess so that she can show her mother a different avenue for life and make her not feel quite so depressed. However, this turns out to be a mistake because then Serena's negative soul uses that magic in ways that can prove to be disastrous. And then we have Serena herself's perspective. So we get the past timeline when Jamie was a child and the relationships between Serena and her wife May and how she came to be the kind of person that she is, essentially. Within that, we also get that, so Jamie's PhD is based on Georgian literature, specifically 1730s to 1740s. She's mostly following women authors, and there are a lot of excerpts at the beginning of chapters from books, most of which are real books. However, the book that Jamie is focusing on is a book called Emily, which is fictional. It is made up by the author, kind of the story of a woman being taken into a fairy tale. We've got this book, and then we've got Emily, which is the book that Jamie is doing part of their PhD on. And then within the book Emily, there is the fairy tale that the character Emily is reading that they then kind of get, I think it's a parallel between their lives maybe, or she gets sucked into, I'm not sure. But we've got the 3 layers of story as well as the 2 perspectives. The 2 perspectives are told in different verb tenses, with Jamie's being in present tense, so it's quite like run on, quite stream of consciousness almost ish, because it's that first person present tense, and then you have the past tense verbs for when we're following Serena's perspective. So we've got a lot going on in here. We've got a lot of queer rep, obviously May and Serena being a queer couple who are old enough to be parents to an adult, which means that they're like older queers. And then on top of that, we also have the perspective of Jamie, who is a trans woman and who is married to a spouse who is non-binary, and they are in a sort of polyamorous or like open relationship. So a lot of queer and non-gender heteronormative conforming relationships going on, which I really appreciate. And again, a huge emphasis on literature. As someone with OCD, watching Jamie completely hyperfixate on something is fabulous. I do really enjoy that. I do really like seeing Jamie become absolutely obsessed with the books and like quoting them and like almost trying to find excuses to bring up the things that she is fixating on that I feel in my soul. So yeah, there's a lot of things going on in here that I'm really appreciating. So between the queer representation and the possibly neurodivergent representation that we're getting from Jamie, although it's never said out loud, emphasis on literature and on the humanities, the witchiness, which I would like to be more pronounced. That's my kind of only criticism, is that I would like the witchiness to be more pronounced than it is. The mother-daughter relationship that we've got going on in here, like there are so many things that are what I exactly want from books. I just think that maybe for me, I would like the witchiness to be a little bit more. And I think that when it comes to the literature, I appreciate that the book needed to be invented so that it could specifically fit the discourse of this book. So the book within the book needed to be invented. It needed to be Emily. It needed to be this fictional one so that it can work for the narrative. But I think as someone who is a lover of literature, I would have really appreciated it if it was a real classic, but I understand why that can't be. It's just, you know, it would have been my preference. Other than that, though, I'm having a fantastic time with this. That being said, I feel like there are going to be a lot of people that are going to hate this book. Like, this is going to be such a Marmite book. Don't get me wrong, Charlie Jane Anders is a Marmite author at the best of times. This is going to be divisive. 1, it's kind of pitched as being witchier than it is. So if you go in and you're wanting a witchy book, you're going to be pissed. 2, it's got a lot of things going on, a lot of layers, the multiple perspectives, the different verb structures, the different subgenres going on in here. 3, equally importantly, not only have we got that first person present that a lot of people do not like throughout a decent chunk of this, I think that the way it's presented, while it works for me, might potentially feel a bit pretentious to other people. The writing style itself can either be read as like an ode to literature, an ode to academia, or pretentious as fuck. So that's just a thing that's going to happen in here, and people are going to love it or hate it. And 4th, and probably most pivotal, there's barely a plot. This is a character study. The plot is there for them to have something to do. The plot is almost non-existent. I can't imagine that there are going to be a lot of people that love this. And I'm not trying to deter you, I'm trying to prepare you. If this still sounds interesting to you, it probably will work for you. But if any of those things sound like a deterrent, I wouldn't pick it up. And I am saying this as someone who is almost certainly going to give this a bare minimum of a 4.5 stars. I am having a wonderful time, but I know that there are going to be people who are going to vehemently hate this book, and I'm very curious to see over the next year or so what the reviews on this look like. So while I'm having a magnificent time, I'm looking forward to seeing the comments of the people who had less of a magnificent time. I am rambling now, so I'm going to leave you to it. I need to go have some more meds and maybe sleep for a little bit, so I will hopefully read some more and then I will check back in later. Hey vlog, coming in with an update because I have finished Lessons in Magic and Disaster. I had a fantastic time with this. I really did enjoy it. And while it's maybe not a perfect book, and I can definitely see why other people are probably going to actively despise it. I had such a good time. The whole thing that I was saying about me wishing that Emily were a real book, now I wish Emily were a real book, but because I want to read it, like, because as the story goes on, it actually becomes like relevant as to why we had to use a fictional book. And now I want Charlie Jane Anders to write the book, which is amazing. So I am very happy to have finished this one, and I am really glad that I had such a good time with it. I think that for me, this is one that it just speaks to me. It's got witchiness, it's got a love for literature, specifically Georgian literature as well. Like the Hanoverian time for literature is one of my favorites. I'm weird because my like love of history is more like late medieval, early modern, but then the Hanoverians, that's where my love of literature starts to come in. That's my vibe. So I am very excited that this kind of conjoined the witchiness with that era of literature. It was like it was made for me. This book is made for me. So I had an amazing time. I'm really glad that I read it. I really loved the queerness within it, the mother-daughter relationship within it, the outlook on academia as well. So yeah, I really appreciated this book, and I am so glad that I did read it, and I got myself out of my little days of only wanting to read romance to be able to pick this up. I am, however, going back into my days of reading romance, and because we're having a super chill day today, we're not reading anything today, I'm gonna do it again. I'm just gonna binge read one of the Tessa Dare books in a day. That's my hope. I literally woke up and the first thing I started doing was reading. I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna start reading one of Tessa Dare books. I'm gonna read the whole thing today. I'm gonna read it all in a day. That's my intention. And then tomorrow I've got 2 days, so I will try and read Song of Achilles in 2 days. If not, I'll use the scroll to kind of like prolong my reading time for another. It'll probably only be another day. So yeah, that's my intentions. But yeah, fantastic read. This is turning out to be an extraordinary week when it comes to what I'm reading. So hopefully I can continue. Hey vlog, it is now Monday. It is now going to be the last 2 days of the readathon. Still very much in my Regency romance era. I don't know what's come over me. All I want to do is read Regency romance. I did pick up the Wallflower Wager and I read the whole thing yesterday. I just like literally binged through it as I have been tending to do. Those books are just so easy. Tessa Dare has a writing style where I am halfway through the book and I'm like, what? It feels like it's been 20 minutes. You know, it's probably been more like an hour and a half, but it feels like it's been minutes. It's insane how quickly I fly through those books. I read that one, another 4-star. Again, they're not perfect. They're historically inaccurate. The writing style can be a bit corny. I don't care. I suppose a little bit considered too kinky on the female side, but not on the male side, because we all think of Regency as being very prudish. Regency falls into the Georgian era. Look up the original Hellfire Club. If you want to know what I'm talking about, look up the original Hellfire Club. Georgians were definitely not as prim and proper as we think they are. Anyway, that's beside the point. I read that. I had a really good time with it. I really enjoyed it. I think the first one's still my favorite, but I did really like the love interest in this one. And the character that we have is adorable. Like, she is so cute. And yeah, I am waiting on the next one, which apparently is coming out next year. And apparently everyone else has had a super long wait for it because the author's been unwell, bless her. So she hasn't been writing since like I think 2020. So yeah, this one is going to be the one that finishes out the series, and I'm really looking forward to it, and hopefully it does actually come out in 2026, which is what it says it's going to. That was a random ramble, but I really enjoyed this. Also, yesterday I finished my book very quickly, as is expected. So I finished it before dinner. So we watched a movie, and then after dinner I quickly read a novella. So I have now read Empress of Salt and Sorrows. I read this because it works for one of the prompts for one of the quests, and I do like doing at least a quest here or there. So I did this one. The quest you can do whenever. There was no need for me to have done it now, but I did do it just, you know, for kicks and giggles because it was 119 pages or something. I wasn't fussed. I'm not sure that Nevo is the author for me, which is a real shame because I read The Chosen and the Beautiful, the Gatsby retelling, and I was mighty disappointed in that. That got 2 stars. But I thought, oh, maybe it's because I hate Gatsby, because I hate Gatsby. It's one of the classics that I least like. So I read that. It was fine. It's 3 stars. I have no thoughts on it, really. It was fine. So we're just gonna gloss over that. I'm gonna mention it here because it will show up in my wrap up and I need to be like, hey, here's a vlog in which I mentioned this. So here you go. It's mentioned. I have nothing to say on it though, sadly. That being said, I have now since this morning started The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I am now 54 pages into this one. I am liking it, thankfully, because if you haven't seen my TBR, and I think in the beginning of this video I mentioned it as well, I keep putting this one off. This is the book on my TBR that most intimidates me. So I am excited, I suppose, that I am enjoying it. We're getting it from Patroclus's perspective, which I expected. I'm liking the way that it's pitched, in the sense of the way that these two men come together. We're seeing him from a relatively young child. I think it's going to be good. I think that I am going to really enjoy the dynamic between the two. It's interesting as well because it's seeing Patroclus portrayed as someone who is very meek and potentially a little bit on the weaker side, knowing where he's going to end up, because I know where he's going to end up and why. It makes it all the more poignant, I suppose. Now, the one thing I will say about this one is that with Circe, I think knowing your Greek gods is helpful. With this one, knowing your like prominent Greek characters from both the Iliad and the Odyssey seem quite pivotal because they just name drop left, right, and center, and there's not really much to tell you who's who. You know, in the first 50 pages, we had Sir Andreas's daughters being kind of courted, and then who they eventually choose, be it both Clytemnestra and Helen. And then we also have it where we see Odysseus's betrothal to Penelope. So we've seen quite a few pivotal things happen in only 54 pages. So it's like really pacing itself up. But then, of course, all of these characters are introduced. We've had Ajax introduced, obviously Agamemnon and Menelaus have been introduced. Likewise, also Clytemnestra and Helen and Odysseus and Penelope. And obviously we've also had both Patroclus and his parents. We have had Achilles and his father have been mentioned. We've had Zeus. We've had the relationship between Zeus and Clytemnestra's mother. All of these things. Like we've had so much in 54 pages. So I do genuinely think it'd be very easy to get lost if you're not versed in Greek mythology. I would not recommend this as an introduction to Greek mythology if you've not read anything Greek mythology relevant before. So it's an interesting one. Like, I'm not losing myself at all because as hyperfixations go, it's not a particularly unique one, but I have been through my Greek mythology era. I have had no problem, but I would not recommend this necessarily to someone who is not versed in Greek mythology. So yeah, I'm enjoying that, but I have decided that I'm going to read 2 books at the same time. I'm going to read this one, and I'm also going to pick up another Tessa Dare so that I can flip between the two. I've just decided that I still want to keep reading Tessa Dare books, and I might as well try and fit it into Magical Readathon. So I've picked up A Night to Surrender, which is the first book in a new series. This is the first one in Spindle Cove, which is following a man who has been sent to this area called Spindle Cove to try and recruit a militia for the Napoleonic Wars. However, while he is there, it turns out it's mostly just spinsters there, led by Susanna, who apparently is going to become like the love interest. So I'm very excited to see that fold out. I'm also just excited to see how I felt with Tessa Dare outside of the series that I've been reading. I'm looking forward to this one, and but again, they're really easy to get through. So I'll just kind of like alternate my reading between this one and that one. But yeah, I'm enjoying my time regardless. So hopefully I can get these 2 done in the next 2 days. And then if I'm still in my Regency era, I might just prolong this vlog past the end of the month and like go till like Friday or something, so that then I can hopefully read a couple more and maybe fulfill the other quests, because again, you can fulfill them whenever. So we'll see how I go about it, but at the moment my priorities for before the end of the month are this one and this one. Vlog. So I am now halfway through The Song of Achilles, so I thought I would check in because I am really enjoying this. I'm not loving it as much as I loved Circe, which I think is fine. I think with Madeline Miller, the first book you read is going to be your favourite book of hers, almost, from what I have seen. And while I'm really liking this and I'm really liking the way we're seeing Patroclus, I don't feel like this one is quite doing the same that Circe did, where Circe really reframed the Odyssey, because Circe's not actually present for all of the Odyssey. She's present for a chunk of it, and then you're hearing things and you're getting informed of things and you're seeing things, but she's not literally just along for the ride for the entirety of the Odyssey. With this one, Patroclus or Patroclus, or however you want to call him, is along for the entire journey. So once we get past seeing his childhood, which is about to happen now, I think, from where this last chapter ended, I'm on page 178. I feel like from this point on, we're just going to see the Iliad, but just from Patroclus's perspective. So I don't think that it's going to necessarily bring anything hugely new to the narrative. And with that, I then don't think it's going to be quite as innovative in a way as Circe was. But I am really enjoying the voice that Madeline Miller has given to Patroclus, and I really like that we have him as someone who is quite vulnerable in this normally fetishized as hyper-masculine society, which it wasn't. Obviously you have the hyper-masculinity of soldiers and warriors, but again, in this era of Greece, you have things like queerness. Orgies were common, people sleeping around were common, and therefore I think that it's doing a really good job of having this hyper-masculine society, and that almost the queerness feeds into that as opposed to detracts from that. I really appreciated that inclusion and the way that that's pitched. So I'm really liking his perspective. I'm really liking the voice he's got. I really don't care about Achilles. I was expecting to like be annoyed with Achilles. I was expecting to kind of like almost hate him a little bit and be like, you don't deserve Patroclus. But I just don't really care about him at the minute, which is odd. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. But yeah, all I've done today is read. All I'm planning on doing for the next 2 days is reading. As much reading as humanly possible. Yeah, I'm hoping to do that. Meaning that I am going to, I think, give this one a break for a little bit and continue with A Night to Surrender. I have started that. I'm on like chapter 5, but I think I'll just update you when I'm like halfway and I actually have thoughts. The writing style is not quite as addictive as the Girl Meets Duke books or whatever they're called. It's not quite as addictive, but I'm still enjoying it. It's still scratching that itch. I'm having a decent time. Again, not besotted with anything, but having a good time. Again, I'm really liking the writing style on this one, so at least it's got that going for it. So yeah, I will check back in a little bit. Hey vlog. So it is now on 10:30. I have been awake since 7:30. As soon as my kids left the house at just before 8:30, I sat down, started reading The Song of Achilles, and I have now finished it. I don't like this as much as I like Circe for a myriad of reasons, but obviously, as I said before, the first one and primary one being that this is just literally a retelling of the Iliad. It's not really bringing a huge amount new to it. If you've read Greek mythology, you know all of this, and all it is doing is being a more humanizing and giving you that more full and well-rounded perspective of Patroclus's life, and that's it. Really, it's not bringing anything new to the story. There are a few things I did appreciate that I didn't talk about before. So everything I said earlier still stands. I think it's come out at a 3.5 stars. I have yet to decide whether or not I want to give that then a 4-star or a 3-star. I'm gonna sit and think about it, and I will see where it lands. Another one that I also don't know if I'm gonna give it 4 stars or 3 stars because it's a 3.5 is the one that I read all of last night and also finished in its entirety. I finished A Night to Surrender. I had a lot more problems with this. Tested Air books are super addictive. They're super easy to get into, and overall, I think the message of this one is quite decent. I think that the idea of men having to overcome their ideals of what the world should look like, believing that the status quo is the status quo because it's good and beneficial instead of just because it's been implemented through the generations. I think that was good. I think that was well handled. I think the way we got there, not so much. To be honest, I don't think that I could happily be banging a guy who believes I don't know my own mind, for example. So there were definitely instances there that didn't work for me as well as a lot of the other Tessa Dare books. I do believe that she is just generally improved as a writer. That being said, still very addictive. I did like the characters. There are clearly 2 other romances that are being set up in this one that I imagine the next 2. I don't know which way round those 2 romantic relationships will go, but they are ones that I am very much enjoying the little nuggets that we got throughout the book for it. So I am hoping that I can go and get to those soon. So yeah, I'll probably go pick those up. They're very cheap. That's my update for that. I liked it. I had more problems with it. It's addictive still, so I will continue the series. I am assuming that where this part is going, the thing is that she always has it where, you know, you kind of need these men to be rehabilitated in some way, shape or form, which is fine. I don't mind that. You know, it's not normally my preference. I like the Jane Austen approach of I could fix him, but he'll fix himself if he knows what's best for him, kind of thing. I did like the way that this was handled in the sense of we've got these guys that need to overcome some obstacles and therefore they're flawed people. I thought that was well handled. It also did make me actually tear up a little bit, not at the book, but so throughout the book there were lots of discussions around women's health. The whole idea of this place is that it's a retreat. I don't even know if I've told you what this book is about. I think I have. But it's a retreat for young ladies, and it's kind of like nicknamed Spinster Cove because it's young ladies who are unmarriageable in some way, shape or form, the ones that have been part of a scandal or the ones that have health conditions, etc. This safe haven has been held together by our protagonist, Susanna, because she is the victim of medical mistreatment herself from the treatments that were available at the time. She was diagnosed with hysteria, etc. So she is now trying to make sure that it's a healthier environment for all these other women. And therefore the book itself was dedicated to women with health issues. The publisher themselves have joined up with an ovarian cancer research charity. So part of the proceeds of buying the book go to cancer, which I just thought was brilliant. When you're talking about health, to put your money where your mouth is, I suppose. I think that was really important, and I am really glad that the author did that. So that was the thing that I really appreciated about this one as well. So yeah, I'll definitely be continuing the series. They're super addictive. That being said, I'm not going to be continuing them now because we have 1 day left. As I said, it's 10:30, actually it's closer to 11 now, but as I said, it's still morning, so we've got plenty of time. So my plan is I am going to try and fulfill the 2 remaining quests that I have. Those 2 require, one of them requires a key on the cover, and one of them requires arts and crafts supplies on the cover. So I have decided that for the arts and crafts on the cover, I'm going to read The Duke Undone by Joanna Lowell. This is one where I think a duke gets drunk, ends up naked, an artist paints him, and now he's like terrified that her art will get out into the world, and it's between the 2, and I think she kind of like coaxes favors from him in exchange for the painting. I'm not sure. It looks fun and I'm excited to give it a try. And the other one that I have is Netherford Hall, because this one does have a tiny key on the cover, and this one is, I think, a witchy Jane Austen-esque retelling. And if it is, and I love it, I'm really sorry about the person I'm about to become. But yeah, I'm going to go try and read as much of A Duke Undone as possible, as I have been doing with all these romances. I will just update you when I'm finished with them, because no offense, I do not have enough thoughts to talk about them for more than once. So I'll talk about them at the end. So if you're not interested in Regency romance, I understand if this is where you end the vlog. If you want to see me possibly find the next best book I could ever possibly read, then by all means follow along and see where this leads. Permit me, kind viewer, a momentary rant. I have just started, like literally read the first few minuscule bits of As You Can Done. I found this on Regency romance lists over and over again, always on Regency romance lists. So tell me why the first thing I read is 1881. These would be Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet's grandchildren, at least, depending on whether you're talking about when Jane Austen wrote Pride and Prejudice versus when it actually came out. At least their grandchildren, adult grandchildren. The Regency did not last a century, people. It did not. Hopefully I'll enjoy the book anyway. It's Hanoverian. That counts, I suppose. It sure as hell ain't Regency. Hey vlog, I'm on sprints at the minute. I'm on the end of Aurelium sprints with G. So I figured that I would quickly check in because I have finished The Duke Undone and started another book. So it makes sense that I would actually bother to check in. So with The Duke Undone, I did enjoy it like for what it was, but I think because I've had such a good time with reading the Tessa Dare books, I think I was looking for that level of addictive writing. And weirdly, while The Duke Undone is probably better written than a lot of the Tessa Dare books, because the Tessa Dare books are basically just straight up smut with a veneer of Regency, and this one is a little bit more of a historical romance. I just didn't find it as addictive, which is what I look for in my romances. With my fantasy and my historical fiction and my sci-fi, I look for there to be like a really deep book that has lots of themes and all of these things. And then with my romance, I want it to be as cheesy as possible. I want garbage. I'm reading romance. I just didn't find it quite as enthralling, but I did have a good time with it overall. I do think that the discussions around mental health in here were really good, which is 2 for 2 on the discussions around mental health. Now I'm thinking about it. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. I wanted to love it a little bit more. I've given it 3 stars. I think that the actual romantic side felt a bit oddly paced, I suppose, because there's a bit there where you're like, oh, this is going to come in hot and heavy, and then it doesn't. And then it does. It's really weird. So in the first like 25% of the book, you literally get one scene of the two together, and it seems like it's going to be really like hot and heavy because of that. And then nothing really happens for a while. And then when they're back together again, then it gets hot and heavy. So the pacing was a bit odd as well. But I did really like the setting. I love the emphasis on art in that. Same way as I feel about when you have literature obsessed characters in books and they sound really pretentious. You kind of have that with this protagonist when they're talking about art as well. I suppose at least it was at least a bit innovative because it's talking about art instead of books. And I don't know as much about art. She talks about stained glass windows and stuff. So that was cool. The Duke character wasn't particularly unique or innovative, and definitely not the one that I found most swoon-worthy as of yet, which happens so far to be still the one from the Duchess deal, which is interesting. I don't know, maybe I'm in my Phantom of the Opera era there a little bit, because again, he's also got the like burn on the side of his head. I don't know. He's the hottest one so far. I have, however, since picked up Netherford Hall, which is a Pride and Prejudice retelling, which you'll know is one of my favorite types of romances. This one is a witchy Pride and Prejudice retelling, and it is sapphic. So far I'm enjoying it. I will probably update you in the morning now, because I do just literally want to zoom through this so that I can actually fit it in before Magical Readathon finishes. So I'm going to not update you on that until I am completely done with it, but I am enjoying it thus far. One more book to go before the end of the readathon. This is now officially the most I have read in a month this year. I don't know about previous years, but it's the most I've read in a month this year. It's the most pages and books that I've read in a month. An obscene amount. It's not even funny. I've read like more than one book every 2 days. That is partly because of when I did the all-nighter where I read like 5 novellas, though, to be fair, for like 24 hours. But even still, there's a lot of reading going on in this. So my wrap-up's going to be very, very long. Once I'm done with this one, I'll check in tomorrow and wrap up this vlog, and then I'll be ready to wrap up this readathon. So at the beginning of this vlog, I was going to try and take this week easy. I was going to chill out so that I didn't burn myself out for October. This week is the most I've ever read in a week. Granted, it's more than a week, it's 10 days. But this is the most that I have read in 10 days, I think, ever, in terms of both books and page count. Now, my anxiety has been really, really high this week. I haven't been letting on quite so much, but my anxiety has been really high this week. So I think it's been a severe amount of escapism. So I should probably look into that. I'm not gonna lie, because this is not normal. This is not a normal amount of books. Granted, I did really just get into Magical Readathon, and that's what I've been using for escapism. It's a lot of books read. Don't try this at home, kids. Basically, it's all I've been doing with my mornings while the kids are at school. Because I decided I'd take this month off because I do find summer super overwhelming and seasonal depression hits me hard. So I have been really trying to settle back in slowly, which is what the point of this month has been. But yeah, it means that all I've been doing is reading. So I'm going to get back into the swing of things now that it's October. So hopefully I will be reading normal amounts of books again. It's not that it's a bad thing that I've read so many books. It's just that I worry when I read this many, because it's like it clearly means something isn't quite right. Like if every minute of my day, aside from when I'm with my children in the afternoons, so like all morning, because my husband's gone all morning while the kids are at school, and then once the kids go to bed, the only thing I'm doing is reading. So that means I have like a solid 9 hours a day. Is that right? Yeah, 9 hours a day dedicated to reading. So before anyone comes at me at like, that's not possible, it's not possible to be reading this much. That's why I'm reading so much, and I need to get a life. I need to do other things, which is what I'm hoping to start doing now. I don't have the incentive of Magical Readathon. I need to calm down. I need to be doing other things. I've got some work coming in, so hopefully I can dedicate myself to doing that instead. But that's my preamble, because people are not going to believe the amount that I have read this month. That is why I have 9 hours a day dedicated to reading. Okay, sometimes I forget to have lunch and have it once my kids are home, when they're having their snacks when they come in. Don't even stop for lunch. Anyway, that being said, let's go through the 11 books that I did manage to read throughout this vlog. Now, the first one that I finished was The Duchess Deal by Tessa Dare. I had such a great time with this. This is my favorite of all of the Regency ones that we're going to be talking about. It was a fantastic book. I had so much fun with it. It was just so addictive. It was exactly what my brain wanted. I really should have gone with, when I did my 24-hour readathon, I really should have just gone with Tessa Dare books, because I could have probably gotten through like 3 of them in 24 hours, and they're full length books instead of all the novellas that I went through. But alas, here we are. I had a great time. 4 stars. It's trashy, but in the best way, and I love it, and I had a great time. The next one that I read and finished then took me back into the more serious realm, and that is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell, which is quite possibly my favorite book of the month. I loved this. It really did make me cry at times, and while I did have criticisms of it, which it makes sense that the book isn't perfect when you're talking about real people, there are always going to be differences of opinions, but I think that the book itself was handled so well, and it was so beautiful, and it's definitely one that I think deserves all the hype that it's got. So yeah, fantastic story, and I would like to read more by this author. Leaving the realm of depression again and going back into the funsies zone, I read the next Tessa Dare book. I read The Governor's Game. This is another one that I had a fantastic time with, another one that's 4 stars. It was a lot of fun. I found that the characters in here worked really well for me as well. And while the Duchess Deal is still my favorite, I did really, really enjoy this one as well, and I had a great time with it. I really like the protagonist in here. The male love interest is not as good as the one in the first one, hence why I like the other one a little bit more, but still I can completely understand his appeal, and I can see why he would be other people's favorites. And yeah, just fantastic time. I did then be a big girl and decide to actually pick up the book I was supposed to be reading, and I picked up Lessons in Magic and Disaster, and I'm so glad that I did, because I ended up giving this one 5 stars. It's come out at 4.5, I think, on Core Power, because I did have some minor criticisms at the start, but I did feel like it completely paid off by the end, and that it was just my own perseverance that was needed. But I am obsessed with this book. I love it so much. It's like it was written for me. It's got Georgian literature, specifically 1730s to 1740s, women's literature, so women writing in the Georgian era, like pre-Jane Austen. And then we've got sapphic romance, we've got witches, we've got college and academia going on in here. So many things going on. I loved it so much. I really liked the characters and how messy and complex they were. And I feel like it did a really good job of not making anyone be this evil, monstrous villain. They're just flawed people who are trying really hard to deal with how fucked up their lives are. And I really appreciated that, and I would highly recommend. That being said, this is going to be a Marmite book. Absolutely Marmite book. And then my mental health was like, yeah, no, we're not ready for that. So I listened, I obeyed, and we went into The Wallflower Wager, which is the third and most recent book in the Girl Meets Duke series by Tessa Dare. And The Wallflower Wager is the one with the character who is the sweetest. Like, she's such a lovely character, and she's the one that you want happiness for. Not that you don't want happiness for everyone else, but this is the one that you just like, you deserve so much. So I really liked that. I did really like dynamic in this one. That whole series has 4 stars for me at the moment, and I can't imagine that the last one's going to be any less. And I am hoping and praying and begging on my knees that that last book comes out in 2026. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that I read Not Too Bold. I read that before I read the second and third Tessa Dare books. I read But Not Too Bold, but that was like a novella so that I could fit it into a prompt, so that I could also fit the Tessa Dare books into prompts and make them work. So I literally scoured Tor.com until I found a novella that was a debut. So I could put a debut on here. And I ended up having a fucking weird time with that book. It was a very strange book. I had a great time. Strange time. Very bizarre. But I did really enjoy it. It's got kind of spiderish romance in it. I don't know. Arachnophobes, stay away. Alright, just don't. Very weird, gothic, alluring. Not really much of a plot. Interesting story. I had a good time. I then read another novella just so that I could try and get through some of the quest sections of Magical Readathon. I actually really enjoyed doing the quests, but this is the only of the novellas that I was like, okay. So this one I picked up Empress of Salt and Fortune, is it, by Nevo, which is the first book in the Singing Hills cycle. I was so excited to pick this up, and this is one that I just was looking into getting anyway, and then I figured, oh, then I'll be able to buy the whole series. I am probably not going to be continuing the series, which is a shame. It's a really good book in terms of, like, objectively speaking. I can see its merits. I can see why people like it. It just didn't pull me in. I don't think that Nevo's writing works for me, which is such a shame. But yeah, it just, there's a disconnect there. It just isn't working for me, and it's such a shame. So yeah, I am not going to be, I don't think, continuing with this one. But like, it was, again, not a bad book. It's more of a me thing than a book thing. Then I read 2 books alongside each other because I definitely knew that by this point my mental health was crashing and I couldn't do a heavy book on its own. So I picked up The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller and read the first half of this one and then read the other half the next day. And this one was a bit of a disappointment. I love Circe. It's one of my all-time favorite books, and I will forever love Circe. So this one just being like, it's 3 stars. It's a real big letdown. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's just that I was expecting it to be the same as Circe, where it reframes the narrative instead of just following the narrative exactly as is, just through a different pair of eyes. So it's just the Iliad, but from Patroclus's perspective. So I don't really think that it added much. Does not feel new to me either. So even though it's shown this really romantic voice and everything, which I did enjoy, I just didn't feel like I got much out of it, which is a problem I have with a lot of Greek retellings. I enjoyed the writing style. I think the characters were decently done. I just don't feel like it was anything that was different to all of the other iterations of the Iliad that I've read. So as I said, while I was reading this, on the first day I read half of this, stopped, and then read a Tessa Dare book, in which I read A Night to Surrender, which I did really enjoy, but it's definitely my least favourite of the Tessa Dare ones. This one's got 3 stars. I said before that the problem with this one is that I agree with where the message goes. I just found getting there annoying, which obviously I can't talk about because of the ending and everything. But I didn't fall for the love interest as quickly as the protagonist did. Again, that's probably due to modern sensibilities, but I didn't really enjoy him quite as much. So there he is. But the story itself was fun, and the writing style is always super addictive. Like, I'll probably read anything by this woman. I need to get more of her books. I'm just finding them so addictive. After I finished The Song of Achilles, I then picked up 2 books to try and cram in on the last day of the readathon. The first one that I read was A Duke Undone by Joanna Lowell, and this one is an enjoyable one, arguably better written than the Tessa Dare ones in terms of that it's stylistically more historical than the Tessa Dare ones, which are, very much in a contemporary style. But I enjoyed it less because it wasn't as addictive. Enjoyed it. It was good. I probably won't be continuing on with the series though. And then the last one that I read, I didn't actually quite finish in time. I did stay up late reading it, and then I also finished a little bit of it this morning, which is fine. But that is Netherford Hall by the Tanya Barron, and this one is a Pride and Prejudice retelling but with witches, and I did really like it actually. I think that it was interesting because we're seeing a lot more of the Darcy like character, and I actually really like that they give you an explanation for why she's rude and abrupt like Darcy. They give you an explanation for it, but it doesn't justify it, you know, because there are other people who are going through a similar thing who are not douches. So it's just like, yes, this is your coping mechanism. This is how you're processing things. And yes, you've been through something that warrants you needing to process it. But when you are in a position of power, it also means that then you being a douche, it handles it in a way that I actually really appreciate it, because it isn't just, oh, my poor baby. It is a bit like, you know, no, you were rude and you were abrupt and that's not okay. The same as Darcy. And I really appreciated that about this character in Netherford Hall as well. So for the most part, 11 books read, which is a lot, and I am now going to go collapse for a few minutes. I am going to be starting a new vlog though, so I'm probably going to go pick up another book. That is everything that I have read. That is a wrap up for this vlog. Let me know if you've read any of these books, literally any of them, or if based on my new addiction with Tessa Dare, you have any other recommendations for me. That would be appreciated. While you're down there, also let me know what was your favourite book of September, because obviously this is the end of September, and I will hopefully catch you in another one soon.